It was a Thursday evening when everything began to feel off. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because of what didn't. Vanessa was late again. The house felt different without her. Too neat, too silent, too staged, like a magazine photo that had forgotten it once held real people. I sat on the couch, the TV flickering in the background, the hum of an empty home pressing against my chest. Her dinner plate was cold, my patience colder. When she finally walked in, smiling, radiant, smelling of someone else's perfume, she greeted me with that same easy confidence that used to melt me. "Sorry, babe. The meeting ran long again," she said, kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. I smiled back because that's what husbands do. We believe first. We break later. But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the car mirror on her way home. I noticed things now. The way she avoided eye contact when she said, "meeting." How she always showered the second she came back. How her phone never left her side anymore. Still, I told myself, don't be paranoid, Daniel. She's your wife. 8 years of marriage. Surely that meant something. The next morning, I woke up alone. Again. Vanessa had already left for work. I made coffee, checked my phone, checked hers. No, I didn't mean to. It was just there, buzzing beside the sink. A message preview flashed across the screen before it locked again. "See you Saturday," winking face. No name, just a winking emoji that hit harder than a confession. I froze, coffee spilling on the counter. Saturday? She told me she had a business conference out of town this weekend. My gut twisted. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, but my hands were already trembling. I shouldn't have done it, but I did. I opened her laptop. Her password hadn't changed. That felt like a strange act of trust, or maybe just carelessness. Either way, the truth was waiting for me, right there in her email drafts. First, nothing suspicious. Then I saw it, an invitation. A digital flyer from someone named Troy Madison. Private house party Saturday, 8 p.m. Dress code, elegant, but daring winking face. Attached were details. The address, directions, and a guest list of high-end corporate names I vaguely recognized from her stories. Except this wasn't a corporate event. The message read like something between a networking event and a fantasy. Bring your confidence. Leave your limits at home. My pulse quickened. The words blurred on the screen. Elegant but daring. Confidence. Limits. I could almost hear Vanessa's laugh echoing in my head. Playful, dangerous, the kind that drew people in without trying. I sat there staring at the screen for minutes, maybe hours. A part of me wanted to believe it was harmless, that maybe she was just attending a fun after-party with coworkers. But the other part, the quiet, smarter part, knew better. People don't hide harmless things. That evening, I tried to act normal. She came home glowing again, spinning stories about client strategy sessions and market pitches. I watched her pack her small silver suitcase, heels, silk dress, perfume. She said she'd be staying at the Hyatt for 2 nights. I said nothing. I just nodded, pretending to be the trusting husband she thought I was. But something inside me shifted that night. It wasn't just jealousy. It was the ache of knowing that love doesn't always die in explosions. Sometimes, it just starves quietly while both people keep smiling. Friday came and went. I didn't call her and she didn't call me. The silence between us was louder than ever. On Saturday evening, I stood by the window, staring at her last text. "Don't wait up tonight, red heart." She never sent hearts anymore. That somehow made it worse. The address from the invitation kept flashing through my mind. My chest was tight. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I grabbed my jacket, keys, and the quiet desperation of a man who already knew the answer but needed to see it anyway. The drive felt endless. Every traffic light mocked me. The closer I got, the fancier the houses became. Large gates, manicured lawns, laughter spilling into the night air. Finally, I pulled up outside a mansion glowing in gold and blue lights. Expensive cars lined the driveway. Music thumped faintly from inside. I sat in my car for a long minute, gripping the steering wheel. This was insane. I shouldn't be here. But curiosity and heartbreak make a dangerous combination. I stepped out, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the door. The bouncer glanced at me but didn't stop me. My confidence, or maybe my pain, must have looked convincing enough. Inside, the air smelled of champagne, sweat, and secrets. People danced under chandeliers, laughing too loudly, touching too freely. I scanned the room, searching for her. Every brunette in a red dress made my stomach flip. Every laugh that sounded like hers made my hands shake. Then I saw her bag, her silver clutch, on a glass table near the bar. She was here. I could feel it in my bones. I wanted to walk out right then, to save whatever dignity I had left. But something stronger than pride, maybe closure, pulled me forward. I moved deeper into the house, my heart pounding like a war drum. The hallways grew quieter, dimmer. Laughter faded into whispers. Behind one half-open door, I heard it. A sound that didn't belong to laughter. Her voice, low, breathless. My hand tightened on the doorknob. And for a second I almost knocked, like a fool still clinging to respect. But I didn't. I pushed the door open. The room went silent. Every head turned. And standing there, illuminated by the flickering candlelight, was my wife. Naked. Every ounce of blood drained from my face. Her eyes met mine, wide with terror, shame, and something else, recognition of the damage she'd just caused. No one spoke. The music from the other room continued faintly, oblivious to the world ending in this one. She reached for a sheet, trembling, whispering something I couldn't even hear, and I just stood there, frozen, watching the version of my life I thought was real shatter in a single heartbeat. People say heartbreak feels like pain. They're wrong. Feels like silence. Like every sound you've ever loved has been turned off. I turned away without a word. The floor creaked beneath my steps. My heart sounded louder than the music. Behind me, I heard her sob, soft, broken. But I didn't stop. Not because I didn't care, because I cared too much to stay. I don't remember walking out of that room. I just remember the silence, the kind that doesn't fade even when you step outside. The air outside was cold, the kind that burns your lungs when you try to breathe. The laughter from inside the mansion sounded distant now, like it belonged to another universe, one I no longer existed in. I stood under the porch lights, my mind refusing to process what my eyes had just seen. It wasn't just the image of her. It was the betrayal wrapped around it. The intimacy that wasn't mine anymore. The realization that the person I trusted most had become a stranger in my story. Inside, people had gone back to pretending nothing happened. The world kept spinning, even as mine came to a screeching stop. I walked toward my car slowly, one hand gripping the keys so hard they cut into my palm. I wanted to scream, punch something, destroy every memory we ever built together. But I didn't, couldn't, because anger would have meant I still understood what I was feeling. And right then I didn't. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was a hollow numbness that crawled under my skin and made my heart feel too heavy to carry. Then I heard her voice behind me. "Daniel, wait." I froze. Her voice cracked, soft, shaking, filled with something that sounded like fear. I didn't turn around. "Not yet. Please," she said again, footsteps crunching on the gravel as she approached. "I can explain." That sentence, "I can explain," has to be the most useless phrase in human language. There's no explanation that makes betrayal easier to swallow. Still, I turned around. Maybe I wanted to hear her say it. Maybe I needed to. Vanessa stood there wrapped in a thin coat, eyes red, makeup smudged, looking nothing like the confident woman I married. She looked small. I wanted to hate her, but seeing her like that made my chest ache instead. That's the cruel part about love. Even when it dies, it leaves its fingerprints all over your soul. "What do you want me to say?" I asked quietly. "Tell me why," I added, my voice trembling. "Was I not enough? Did you stop loving me? Or was it just easier to lie?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to happen, Daniel. I swear I didn't plan any of this. I felt lonely. You were always working, always distant. Don't," I cut her off. "Don't make this about me." Her lips trembled. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." I snapped. You're rewriting the story so you don't have to feel like the villain. She took a step closer. I'm sorry. Sorry? I laughed bitterly. You're sorry? That's supposed to fix what I just saw in there. She flinched at the words, hugging herself as if trying to disappear. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The night swallowed our silence. Finally, she whispered, "It was one time that broke something inside me." One time, I repeated. Do you think that makes it better? You think betrayal is measured in numbers? She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. The distance between us felt like miles now, not just physical but spiritual. You looked me in the eyes every night, I said, voice cracking. You told me you loved me while you were already gone. She started crying harder. I didn't want to lose you. Then why did you let me? No answer. Just the sound of her sobbing, echoing in the night. I don't know how long we stood there like that, her broken, me hollow. Eventually, I looked at her one last time. I gave you everything, I said softly. My trust, my loyalty, my time, everything. And you gave me something I'll never be able to forget. Please, she whispered. Don't leave like this. I exhaled slowly. There's no other way to leave. And with that, I walked away. I drove without direction, the road a blur of headlights and tears. At a red light, I finally pulled over and buried my face in my hands. I'd always imagined heartbreak as loud, shouting, doors slamming, things breaking. But it's quiet. It's terrifyingly quiet. It's the sound of your own breath when you realize the person you built your life around was never really yours to begin with. Memories flooded my mind like a cruel montage. Our first date, how she laughed when I spilled coffee on myself. Our wedding day, her whispering forever against my neck. Her voice last week, don't wait up tonight. Every memory twisted itself into a knife. How do you mourn someone who's still alive? At some point, I ended up by the ocean. I don't remember how. The waves crashed against the shore, cold wind slapping my face. I stepped out of the car, letting the salty air sting my eyes. For a second, I thought about calling someone, my brother, maybe my friend Mark. But what would I say? Hey, I just found my wife naked at a party. How's your weekend? No, this was something I had to face alone. I threw my phone into the passenger seat and just stood there, staring at the water. The ocean didn't care. The world didn't stop. Life kept moving forward. Maybe that's what hurt the most. Realizing the world doesn't pause for your pain. As I drove home later, the city lights blurred through my tears. Every song on the radio sounded like it was mocking me. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I sat in the car for a long time, engine running. The house windows were dark, empty. It didn't feel like home anymore. I went inside, straight to the kitchen. The dinner plates from Thursday were still there. Her wine glass, half finished. Everything frozen in time, the last normal day before the truth came crashing in. I leaned against the counter, staring at our wedding photo hanging above the dining table. We looked so happy, so untouchable. Now I could barely recognize the people in it. I took the frame down slowly, tracing her smile with my thumb. Then I set it face down. For the first time that night, I let myself cry, really cry. Not just from betrayal, but from the death of something sacred. It wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of an identity, husband, partner, safe place. When I finally stopped shaking, I whispered to myself, she took my peace, but she doesn't get to take my soul. Outside, dawn was breaking. And though my world had fallen apart, a small, stubborn part of me, the one still beating somewhere beneath the pain, knew this was just the beginning of something else. Something raw, something real, something that, for the first time in years, would belong only to me. Morning crept in quietly, as if afraid to touch the ruins of the night before. The city was still asleep, but I hadn't closed my eyes once. Every time I blinked, I saw it again. That room, that silence, that look in her eyes when she realized I'd seen everything. I sat at the kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of me, staring at the way sunlight touched the photo frames on the wall. Each one felt like a lie now, frozen moments from a story that never existed. I used to think betrayal was loud, something you could hear. Turns out it's quiet. It hums in the background of everything. The tick of the clock, the drip of the faucet, the hollow space beside you where someone used to sit. The sound of tires crunching on gravel pulled me out of my thoughts. Her car. I didn't move. I just sat there, waiting. The door opened slowly, cautiously, like she already knew she wasn't walking into her home anymore. Daniel. Her voice was small, like a child afraid of the dark. I didn't answer. Footsteps. The familiar click of her heels on the floor. Then she appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes swollen, wearing the same coat she'd thrown on last night. For a second, we just looked at each other. Two people who used to know everything about each other, now unsure what to say. She broke the silence first. I didn't know where else to go, she said quietly. I set my cup down. Home seems like an interesting choice for someone who doesn't live here anymore. Her face crumpled. Please don't do that. Do what? Act like I don't exist. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back. You made that decision when you walked into that room with him. She flinched like I'd hit her. I'm sorry, she whispered. You have to believe me. Why? I asked. What does sorry even mean now? You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry I saw it. Her lips trembled. That's not true. Then what is? She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I made a mistake. I was lonely. I felt disconnected. I cut her off. Stop. Don't give me cliches. I'm not your therapist. Tears welled up in her eyes. You stopped looking at me the way you used to, Daniel. You stopped noticing me. You were buried in your work and Don't, I said sharply, my voice cracking. Don't turn your betrayal into my failure to notice your perfume. Silence. The kind that suffocates you more than screaming ever could. Finally, I sat back down, my voice softer now. I would have given you anything, I said. If you'd told me you were unhappy, I would have listened. I would have tried. But you didn't want to fix us. You wanted an escape. She covered her face, sobbing. I didn't mean to hurt you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger who happened to know how I took my coffee and which side of the bed I slept on. Do you love him? I asked. She froze. No, it wasn't like that. I tilted my head slightly. Then what was it like? She hesitated. It was a distraction. A moment. I felt seen again. Her words hit me harder than the image from last night. Because that was the truth. It wasn't about love, it was about validation. About ego. About being wanted. And that realization hurt more than the betrayal itself. I stood, running a hand through my hair. Do you know what hurts the most, Vanessa? I said quietly. She looked up, eyes pleading. It's that I still love you, I said. Even after everything. That's the part one hate the most. She broke down again, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Her fingers hung in the air for a second before falling uselessly to her side. Daniel, please, don't walk away from 8 years. I laughed bitterly. 8 years? You ended them for 8 minutes. She cried harder. I can't lose you. I looked at her, the woman I built my life around, and for the first time I realized I already had. The clock ticked loudly in the background. We stood there, surrounded by the ghosts of our memories. The photos, the coffee mugs, the faint smell of her perfume still clinging to the air. I'm not angry anymore, I finally said. She looked at me in confusion. I thought I would be, I continued. But I'm not. I'm just tired. Tired of trying to keep something alive that's been dead for a long time. Her voice cracked. So this is it? I nodded slowly. This is it. She wiped her tears, whispering, You used to call me your forever. I did, I said softly. But forever only works when both people mean it. For a long moment we just stood there in silence. The kind that feels like the end of a movie. No dramatic music, no explosion. Just two people realizing the story's over. Then, she walked toward the door, stopping for a moment to look back. Will you ever forgive me? She asked, voice trembling. I took a deep breath. I already did, I said. She blinked. You did. Forgiveness isn't for you, I said. It's for me. I need to let go of the hate so it doesn't poison what's left of me. Her tears fell again. Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye, Vanessa. She stepped outside. The door clicked shut softly behind her. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was peaceful. Empty, yes, but peaceful. I sank back into my chair, staring at the sunlight now spilling across the floor. It was the same morning light I'd seen 1,000 times before, but it looked different now, sharper, cleaner, real. Maybe that's what happens when lies leave a room. You finally see the truth clearly. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually, I reached for my phone. Her contact was still there, Vanessa Redheart, and for a brief second, I almost called her. Old habits die slow, but then I deleted the heart, then the name, then the number. One small act of freedom. Outside, I could hear birds, kids playing somewhere down the street, life going on. And I realized it would keep going for me, too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I walked to the window, looking out at the world that hadn't ended after all. And in that moment, I finally understood something I'd never really grasped before. You don't lose everything when someone betrays you. You just lose the illusion that they were yours to begin with. I picked up my keys. I didn't know where I was going yet. Maybe to the ocean again, maybe just for a drive. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running away. I was moving forward. That night was the first one I'd spent truly alone in 8 years. The house felt bigger than it ever had before. Every corner echoing with memories I didn't ask for. Her laughter still lived in the walls. Her perfume lingered in the air, like the ghost of something that refused to die quietly. I tried to sleep, but sleep doesn't come to those who are haunted. So I sat by the window instead, staring out into the empty street, watching the city lights flicker like fading promises. The silence was thick, but it wasn't the same kind of silence as before. Last night it was heavy, suffocating. Tonight it was honest. Maybe that's the cruel beauty of loss. It strips everything down until only the truth remains. My phone buzzed around midnight. Her name flashed across the screen. Vanessa. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a message appeared. I know you hate me, but please don't shut me out completely. I can't sleep. I keep seeing your face. I typed 3 words, then deleted them, then typed again, then deleted again. In the end, I just turned the phone face down. Some conversations only reopen wounds. I got up and walked through the house slowly, turning on no lights, just moonlight guiding me through what used to be ours. In the living room, our wedding photo still lay face down on the table from the night before. I picked it up. There we were, smiling, drunk on forever, eyes full of dreams we'd never deliver. I ran my thumb over the frame, tracing the edges of that fake eternity. Then, quietly, I set it in a box with the rest of our photos. Not out of hate, out of mercy, because every time I looked at them, I saw a man who believed love was unbreakable. And I wasn't him anymore. Around 2 a.m., I stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp, clean, like it was daring me to breathe again. The neighborhood was quiet, but somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and I could hear the hum of cars on the highway. Life was still moving, even if I wasn't. I sat on the porch steps, looking up at the stars. Funny how I'd spent years too busy to notice them. There was something humbling about realizing the sky didn't change. Not for love, not for betrayal. It just kept shining, indifferent and infinite. And maybe that's the lesson. Life doesn't stop when people walk away. It just waits for you to start walking again. I thought about calling my brother, Mark. He'd always said I worked too much, that I'd lose something important one day if I didn't slow down. I used to laugh at that. Turns out he was right, just not in the way he meant. Instead of calling, I opened a blank notebook that had been sitting on my desk for months. I wrote one line at the top. Things I learned the hard way. Then, slowly, the words started coming. Love can't survive without honesty. Silence between 2 people can be louder than any argument. Sometimes, walking away is the most loyal thing you can do for yourself. I kept writing until the page filled up. Then another. Somewhere between the sentences, my heart stopped racing. Maybe healing doesn't start when you forget someone. Maybe it starts when you finally tell the truth to yourself. By dawn, I was exhausted but strangely calm. The first sunlight slipped through the blinds, painting gold lines across the floor. I made coffee, black this time. She used to like it with sugar. I sat there, watching steam rise from the cup, realizing it was the first morning in years where I didn't have to wonder if someone was lying to me. Freedom doesn't always come wrapped in happiness. Sometimes it comes wrapped in grief, and that's okay. Around 8 a.m., I heard a soft knock at the door. When I opened it, it wasn't Vanessa. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Keller, a kind woman in her 60s who always brought cookies during the holidays. "Rough night?" she asked gently, noticing my tired eyes. I smiled faintly. "Something like that." She handed me a small paper bag. "Muffins. You look like you could use a reason to eat." "Thank you," I said. She hesitated before walking away. "You're a good man, Daniel. Don't let someone else's choices make you forget that." Her words hit deeper than I expected. Maybe because, for the first time, I needed to hear them. After she left, I sat on the couch, holding that bag of muffins like it was something sacred. It reminded me that kindness still existed, even when love didn't. I turned on some soft music, just enough to fill the silence. No sad songs, no memories. Just piano notes floating like gentle waves. For the first time since everything happened, I allowed myself to breathe without feeling guilty about it. Later that day, I took a long shower. I stood under the water until the heat ran out, letting it wash away the scent of her perfume, the memory of her touch, the sting of last night's words. When I stepped out, I looked in the mirror. I didn't see the broken man from yesterday. I saw someone still standing. Tired, yes. Bruised, definitely. But still here. And that had to count for something. That evening, I drove to the ocean again. Same spot as before, but this time, the water looked different. Calmer. Like it was reflecting something new. I sat on the sand, shoes off, letting the waves reach my feet. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, and for a moment, I forgot about her. I didn't replay the scene in my head. I didn't wonder if she missed me. I just sat there. The pain was still there, but it was quieter now. Manageable. Almost like a scar. Still visible but no longer bleeding. I picked up a small stone and threw it into the water. It disappeared instantly. So many things in life do. Love. Promises. Forever. But the ripples remain. Gentle reminders that even when something ends, it leaves its mark. When I got home that night, I opened my notebook again and wrote, "Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. So you can finally breathe again." I closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and went to bed. This time, I didn't stay awake thinking about what I lost. I thought about what I still had, my integrity, my strength, my future. And as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something simple but profound. You can survive heartbreak. You just have to decide that you will. 6 months had passed since the night everything fell apart. 6 months since I stood in that room, watching the woman I loved disappear behind a version of herself I never saw coming. If someone told me back then that I'd smile again, genuinely, without bitterness, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I was, sitting in a quiet cafe on a Sunday morning, sunlight spilling across the table, coffee in one hand, a book in the other. It's strange how life rebuilds itself piece by piece, quietly, without asking for permission. I'd moved to a smaller apartment downtown, nothing fancy, just enough for me. The walls were bare, the fridge half empty, but it was mine. No lies, no shadows, just me, my thoughts, and the steady hum of a life learning to breathe again. Sometimes people say healing happens like a sunrise, slow, gentle, barely noticeable until suddenly the world is bright again. That's exactly what it felt like. One day I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about her in weeks. And when I did think of her, it didn't hurt anymore. Not like before. Not like fire. More like a faint scar, a reminder of a lesson learned. I still kept the notebook, the one I started that night, things I learned the hard way. The first few pages were angry, trembling, written in a rush of pain. But the later ones, they were different, softer, wiser. I'd written things like, love yourself enough to walk away from what kills your peace. Sometimes the person who breaks you is the one who taught you what love shouldn't feel like. Let go not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. Every page was a step forward. Every word, a quiet rebellion against the past. One afternoon, I ran into someone unexpected, Evelyn, an old college friend. We hadn't spoken in years. We sat for hours catching up, laughing like old times. She asked about Vanessa and I hesitated. I guess we just wanted different things, I said. It was the simplest truth I'd ever spoken. No anger, no stories, just peace. Evelyn smiled and said, "You sound lighter, Daniel. Happier." And I realized I was. Later that night, I walked home under a light drizzle. The streets glowed with reflections of neon lights and passing cars. It reminded me of all those nights I'd driven around trying to make sense of the pain, searching for closure in places that couldn't give it. Now I understood closure isn't something you find. It's something you decide. You close the door yourself, not because everything makes sense, but because you're ready to stop standing in the doorway. I stopped checking her social media months ago. I didn't need to know if she was happy or if she regretted anything. That chapter was written, sealed, and shelved. And for the first time, I was reading my own story instead of hers. Sometimes I still think about the moment I walked into that party. How the world froze, how my heart shattered. But now, when I replay it, it's not with pain. It's with gratitude. Because that moment, as brutal as it was, gave me the clarity I'd been blind to for years. It showed me the difference between love and attachment, between fighting for someone and fighting yourself just to stay. One evening, I visited the beach again. The same one where I sat alone the night after everything happened. The ocean was calm this time, the wind soft, the sun sinking into the horizon like it was finally at peace. I stood there for a long while, watching the waves touch the shore, coming and going endlessly. And that's when it hit me. Maybe people are like tides. They come into your life, they leave, they return in different forms. And none of it is your fault. It's just how the ocean moves. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and whispered quietly, "Thank you for teaching me how to let go." Not for her. For me. A few weeks later, I got a message from Vanessa. It was short. Just a few lines. "I heard you moved. I hope you're doing okay. I'm sorry for everything. I really am." I stared at the screen for a while, feeling nothing. No anger, no ache, just a strange kind of acceptance. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't need to. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means wishing someone well and moving on without them. And that's exactly what I did. These days, I wake up early, make my coffee, and watch the sunrise from my balcony. I've started painting again. Something I gave up years ago when life got too busy. There's peace in colors, in creation, in knowing you can build something beautiful from the ruins. Sometimes people message me, friends, old colleagues, saying they're going through heartbreak, betrayal, loss. They ask how I survived. I tell them the truth. You don't survive by pretending it didn't happen. You survive by feeling every ounce of the pain until it no longer controls you. That's the lesson I'll never forget. Pain is inevitable, but healing, that's a choice. I once believed love was about never letting go. Now I know it's about knowing when to. And when you finally do, when you stop begging for someone to see your worth, you realize you were never unworthy. They just didn't have the eyes to see it. That night, before going to bed, I opened my notebook again and wrote one final entry. To the man I was, thank you for holding on when it hurt. To the man I've become, thank you for letting go. I closed the book, placed it on the shelf, and turned off the light. The room was silent, but this time, the silence didn't hurt. Felt like peace. If you've ever been broken by betrayal, by love, by loss, remember this. The story doesn't end with the heartbreak. It begins the moment you choose yourself again. Don't let someone's betrayal convince you you're unworthy of love. You are. You always were. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can ever say is not, "I hate you." It's "Thank you for showing me who I am without you." Broken heart, have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved to save yourself? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs your strength today. And if this story hit home for you, backhand index pointing right, follow for more real stories that heal, hurt, and remind us we're not alone.